Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show that's all about helping you cut through the noise and get straight to the insights. Today we're plunging into a truly fascinating and often overlooked corner of history. We're looking at the incredibly diverse tapestry of Muslim political thought in British India leading up to the partition of 1947. You see, while the creation of Pakistan is a historical fact, the journey to that pivotal year was, well, it was far from a single, unified march.
That's such a crucial starting point. It really is. What's truly illuminating here is that Pakistan emerged not from some kind of consensus, but actually from a period of intense debate and a rich, often discordant chorus of dissenting voices among Muslim leaders, various organizations, and prominent intellectuals. Many of these figures, deeply committed to their faith and their vision for the subcontinent, strongly critiqued or offered completely different visions from the Muslim League's ultimate demand for a separate state.
And to really underscore that early skepticism, let's dive right in with a compelling anecdote from our sources. It perfectly captures the mood for many at the time. Imagine a massive gathering in Delhi. This is the 1940s. Ataullah Shah Bukhari, the fiery leader of the Majlis-e-Ahrar. They were a prominent nationalist Muslim political party, known for opposing the Muslim League. He's holding everyone spellbound. He tells this story about a mother sending her young son, Muhammad Ali, to buy kerosene. The shopkeeper fills the pot right to the brim, but the boy, ever the opportunist, asks for a junga, a little extra.
Right, a little bit on top.
Exactly. But the shopkeeper, seeing the pot's already overflowing, asks, well, where am I supposed to put this extra bit? The boy, quick as flash, upends the pot, points to the now empty opening. The shopkeeper, kind of amused, obliges, pours the chunga into the empty pot. The boy goes home, proudly presents this seemingly full pot, only for his mother to be shocked at how little oil there actually is. And he boasts, no, mother, look, there's a chumba with it as well.
Huh. And Bukhari, with that classic orator's wry smile, he concluded his story by declaring, this Pakistan, triumphantly presented by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, as a solution for Muslims, who are a quarter of India's population, is also like this chunga. I mean, it's not just a funny story, is it? It immediately introduces this profound idea that for many, the grand promise of Pakistan might have seemed like, well, very little substance, maybe more symbolic gesture than a real solution to very complex problems.
That chunga anecdote, it really nails the skepticism, doesn't it? So how did this early doubt evolve? And what specific alternatives were these marginalized voices actually proposing? Our mission today is really to unpack these forgotten or often sidelined perspectives. We'll be drawing from a wealth of sources, academic texts, historical documents, analyses of various figures and organizations to give you, our listener, a fuller, more nuanced picture of the complex, often contradictory debates that truly shaped a subcontinent. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. And connecting this to the bigger picture, it's about understanding that history, well, it's rarely a straightforward narrative, is it? There were multiple, often conflicting ideas of Muslim political identity and nationhood at play, each offering a really distinct path forward.
Of course, to fully appreciate these critiques, we do have to start by acknowledging the eventual success of Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League. They did achieve a separate state in the Muslim-majority regions of northwest and northeast India. And after partition, Jinnah articulated his vision for this new nation. His address to the Constituent Assembly on August 11, 1947, is key here.
And what's truly fascinating is how Jinnah prioritized things in that speech. His immediate tasks for the new state were, maintaining law and order, protecting life, property, religious beliefs, and importantly, eliminating corruption and nepotism. Standard stuff, maybe. But crucially, he also notably stated that in the political sense, Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims as citizens. He actually called for religion to be excluded from state affairs and for complete equality for all non-Muslims.
Which really highlights that initial intended secularist leaning for the new state, right? A vision many would argue got lost somewhere along the way.
Tragically lost, some would say, yeah.
And this grand vision, it often contrasted sharply with the fears and hopes of other Muslim leaders. That's the core tension we mentioned. So let's consider the first major front of critics, the nationalist, secularist, and composite nationalism front. These were figures who saw a future for Muslims within a united India.
Which raises that important question. If not Pakistan, what exactly did they envision instead? Take the Jamiat Ulama-e Hind, the JUH. This was a powerful organization of prominent religious scholars, the ulama. And its leader, Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani, they were unwavering in opposing a separate state. They allied closely with the Indian National Congress.
And their philosophy was pretty robust. They promoted something called composite nationalism, which they argued was perfectly amenable to Islam. And they weren't just, making it up.
No, they had precedents.
They cited the Covenant of Medina, that early Islamic document establishing a pluralistic community back in 7th century Arabia, a powerful historical example of multi-religious coexistence.
Exactly. And Madani went even further. He argued for India as a sacred land for Muslims, emphasizing territorial loyalty. He pointed out that centuries of Muslim burials made the soil sacred. He even reminded followers that Prophet Muhammad loved his homeland. So his followers in India could hardly do otherwise, could they? It's quite a powerful emotional and theological argument.
And this wasn't just abstract theology, was it? Their approach seems rooted in deep pragmatism.
Oh, very much so. Madani, for example, he openly critiqued Abul Ala Maududi's purist Islamist vision as, well, completely unrealistic. He challenged this idea of Muslims shunning non-Muslims in daily life. He asked quite directly, should they forego non-Muslim doctors, engineers, bureaucrats? It's just not practical.
Yeah, you can see the point.
Madani's argument, it offers a really profound insight that even deeply religious principles could be and were interpreted to support a diverse secular nationalism. It directly challenges that simplistic idea that religious identity automatically demands separate political space.
And their commitment to this inclusive vision, it was strong. I mean, during the horrifying partition violence, they actively protected Hindus and Sikhs.
Yes, literally using their bodies as shields against mobs. It shows an incredible level of commitment to that ideal of composite nationalism.
Madani's actions really paint a vivid picture. And this ideal wasn't confined to the ulema. If we journey west to Sindh, we find another compelling figure, Allah Bakhsh Sumro.
Ah, Sumro, yes. Often described as a pragmatic nationalist, he firmly resisted the Muslim League's pull, aligning instead with these nationalist Muslim initiatives across India.
His commitment was to cross-communal cooperation.
Absolutely. Initially, he supported the League on sort of all India matters, but he steadfastly insisted on provincial autonomy for Sindh. He recognized the unique culture and politics there, but his political career faced huge challenges. He was unfairly blamed for communal tensions during the Manzilga agitation, that dispute over a mosque in Sindh, even when he was actually facing League-backed opposition using Gandhian tactics against him. It just shows how intense and messy the politics became.
And his story, unfortunately, ends tragically, murdered in 1943. It leaves you wondering that what if? Could an alternative Sindhi path, based on harmony, have emerged if he'd survived?
Exactly. His removal arguably closed off a really significant avenue for non-League Muslim leadership in that crucial region. It's a poignant example of how individuals can shape or fail to shape history.
Then if we look further east in Bengal, we find Reza Karim. He critiqued Pakistan from a distinctly Bengali perspective.
Right, advocating for a composite nationalism again, but one that specifically linked religion, nation, and regional Bengali culture.
His 1941 book, Pakistan Examined, laid out his arguments.
It really did. He highlighted the, quote, vagueness of the Pakistan proposals, how ill-defined the actual mechanics were. And crucially, he predicted their economic impracticality for poor Muslim-majority provinces like Bengal. He foresaw a constant need for external borrowing.
It's a very practical point.
Absolutely. His core insight was that this grand ideological vision of Pakistan often overlooked fundamental practical concerns, local economies, diverse class interests. He suggested the notion of a single Muslim interest was maybe an elite construct, vulnerable to real-world economics. The fact that poor Muslims often had more in common with poor Hindus than with rich Muslims.
So it's abundantly clear that the idea of a unified Muslim political identity demanding a separate state was far from universally accepted. While Jinnah was articulating his state vision, many were actively proposing alternatives within a united India. But what about those who saw a completely different path, perhaps even more radical than Jinnah's demand? Let's explore some truly alternative ideologies.
Okay, yeah. This is where we encounter some truly unique, maybe even startling visions for the subcontinent. First, we have to acknowledge Chaudhary Rahmat Ali. He's the individual who actually coined the name Pakistan back in '33 in his pamphlet, Now or Never.
Right, the name giver.
Mm-hmm.
But his vision, this is where it gets pretty wild, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Far, far more radical than the Muslim League's eventual goal. He didn't just see a separate Pakistan in the Northwest. He imagined India not as a single country, but as the continent of Dinya.
The continent of Dinya.
Yes, a sprawling mosaic of 10 distinct religiously defined nations, things like Pak Nation in the northwest, but also Sidikistan, Farrukistan. It was a total redrawing of the map, much grander, much less feasible, perhaps.
And his stance was uncompromisingly anti-Hindu and anti-British.
Deeply. So inflexible and extreme that it actually created discord with the Muslim League itself. They saw his ideas as impractical, maybe even unhelpful to their more focused political aims. Rahmat Ali essentially wanted a complete, radical, religiously exclusive reimagining of the entire subcontinent, a far cry from the more pragmatic, geographically limited state Jinnah eventually aimed for.
Wow. Okay, then next we have Abu al-Maududi and the Jama'at-e-Islami. Maududi, a hugely influential Islamist intellectual. He criticized Western nationalism, aimed to establish Darul Islam, an abode of Islam across India. But here's the kicker. He was initially a harsh critic of the Muslim League.
Indeed, he was. Maududi famously questioned if their Pakistan would truly be based on God's sovereignty or just on Western democratic principles. He even called it potentially Napakistan, an impure land if it wasn't genuinely Islamic in foundation and governance.
Pakistan. That's strong.
Very strong. Maududi saw the League as basically a secular Muslim nationalist movement, led by individuals including Jinnah, whom he perceived as having little genuine knowledge or practice of Islam. His critique really highlights this profound ideological chasm between, let's say, Muslim nationalism as a political project and Islamist visions for a truly theocratic state. Different worlds, almost.
And for a completely different kind of revolutionary energy, we turn to Allama Inayat Ullah Khan Mashriqi and the Coxar Tehrik. That was the disciplined paramilitary movement, right? With the distinctive uniforms, the social reform agenda.
That's the one. Mashriqi offered less a blueprint for a conventional state and more what some sources call a revolutionary sense of temporality, a demand for total societal upheaval.
What does that mean exactly? Revolutionary sense of temporality.
It's about the timing and nature of change. What's fascinating is Mashriqi could apparently speak for both Pakistan and a united Hindustan without seeing a contradiction. For him, both were just potential pathways to a larger revolution. His unique perspective was that 1947, the actual transfer of power, was the moment the revolution died.
Why?
Because Pakistan became merely a political plan, a negotiated settlement, rather than the total societal upheaval, the complete overturning of the existing order that he craved. He had this almost apocalyptic rhetoric. He warned against a peaceful transfer of power, predicting institutionalized civil war and permanent anarchy under a 10 times worse form of rule if a true radical revolution didn't happen. Anything less than total transformation was a betrayal in his eyes.
It's just remarkable how many divergent paths Muslim political thought was navigating. Such different energies. But beyond these grand ideological clashes, there were also profound fears and anxieties fueling opposition. Let's delve into how sectarian concerns and maybe the feeling of unfulfilled promises shaped the debate. The Shia Political Conference, for instance, and its leader Hossein Boiladji, they expressed strong apprehension.
Yes, their concerns were very specific and deeply felt. They argued that Pakistan, as envisioned by the League, would essentially become Sunnistan, and that this would lead to the total annihilation of Shia faith, culture, and individuality. They perceived a Sunni dominance within the Muslim League.
Even though Jinnah himself was Shia.
Exactly. Despite Jinnah's background, many Shia ulama actually denounced the League as almost entirely a Sunni organization. It really reveals how prominent and persistent these sectarian concerns were, and how the Pakistan movement struggled, maybe failed, to create a truly ecumenical Qawmiyat, a unified national identity that could genuinely transcend Shia-Sunni divisions, even with that shared broader religious identity. It highlights a critical challenge for any nation-building project trying to unify diverse religious groups.
That definitely highlights that even within a shared religious identity, deep, sometimes insurmountable divisions existed. It wasn't monolithic at all. Another compelling story illustrating this disaffection is Mian Iftikharuddin. He initially allied with the Muslim League.
He did. He envisioned Pakistan as a means to achieve freedom, liberty, and economic prosperity for the people. High hopes. But he became profoundly disillusioned very quickly after partition. By 1950, he founded the Azad Pakistan Party and launched this blistering critique of the Muslim League for failing to fulfill its promises. He specifically condemned its corruption, its inertia, and its continued ties to, quote, British or American imperialism. He argued the new state had just traded one form of foreign influence for another.
Ouch, that's quite an indictment.
It really is. His story highlights the disaffection and uncertainty that mark Pakistan's early years, and that bitter feeling that the grand promise of decolonization and freedom went unfulfilled for many who had passionately fought for it.
And finally, we come to Abdul Ghaffar Khan, also known as Badshah Khan, and the Quaid-e-Azam, the frontier Gandhi, led that nonviolent Pashtun movement aligned with Congress, committed to a united India.
Yes, Ghaffar Khan fiercely opposed the Muslim League. He saw them as collaborators with the British, not true proponents of independence. And when Congress ultimately agreed to partition, well, Ghaffar Khan expressed devastating grief, a profound sense of betrayal. He famously felt the Pashtuns were thrown to the wolves by the very leaders they had allied with for decades.
Thrown to the wolves. That's incredibly powerful language.
It is. He even proposed the idea of a third state, Pashtunistan, reflecting this deep sense of abandonment and reflecting the systematic destruction of their nonviolent movement in the new Pakistani state. His story is just a powerful, tragic reminder of the human cost and the fractured loyalties partition left behind.
So we've explored this vibrant spectrum of critiques, alternative visions, but what does it all mean when we talk about the very idea of a nation itself? The evolution of the term Quam in British India seems absolutely central here.
It really is central. Originally, back in the 19th century, Quam broadly just denoted a community or group of people, pretty general. It then evolved, particularly within the Muslim League's discourse, to mean a minority nationality, and eventually it solidified for them into meaning a nation in the Western sense, an exclusive political entity demanding its own sovereign state.
But crucially, this evolution wasn't seamless. The term retained its polyvalence, meaning it held multiple meanings at once.
Exactly. It held multiple, often conflicting meanings simultaneously. For many, like the Jami-ik Ulama-i-Hind we discussed, Muslim Quam continued to denote a religious community within a larger Indian nation, not a singular nation-state demanding its own territory.
That's such a critical distinction. It highlights how different groups could interpret the very concept of Muslim identity and its political expression in profoundly different ways.
Absolutely. This contestation over the definition of Muslim identity itself, was it a cultural or religious community that could thrive in a pluralistic state? Or was it a full-fledged, distinct nation demanding its own territory? That contestation was absolutely central to the diverse opposition against the Muslim League's specific vision for Pakistan. It was, in essence, a battle over the meaning of identity and how that identity should manifest politically.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just clear there was an incredible, sometimes dizzying diversity of Muslim political thought during this pivotal moment. The idea of Pakistan, though, ultimately realized was, well, it was far from universally accepted among Muslims. And many offered compelling, albeit often divergent, alternatives that really speak to the complexity of the era.
And understanding these critiques isn't just some academic exercise, is it? It's crucial for grasping the complex legacies of partition, the inherent challenges of nation building, and the ongoing debates about identity, religion, and politics in South Asia that, frankly, continue right up to today. It really shows that the narrative we often hear about the birth of these nations is just one thread in a much larger, much more intricate tapestry of aspirations, fears, and revolutionary ideas, all vying for attention at the same time.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If the concept of a nation could be so fluid, so contested, even among those sharing a common religious identity back then, what does this tell us about the foundational assumptions of nationhood itself, both then and now? Does it maybe imply that national identities are always more constructed, less inherent than we often believe? And thinking back to Bukhari's story, how many other Chunga solutions, presented as definitive answers, might we be overlooking in our own time? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.